The hip presents so hard, they are feeling it in Brazil. Mamma mia, what a KO!
The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see.
Incredible. Oh, and down goes Gamboa. Whoop, there it is.
With a huge highlight tonight.
On this recording. What up, brawlers? Welcome back to Throwin Hands. It's Toby, and we're live streaming today, coming at you with a new, just a new way to do this. Toby, what's up? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I like it. I'm a fan of the live streams. It'll probably make things a little bit easier for you, so that's good.
Yeah, don't have to upload the video itself. It's just going out there to the people. So, UFC 298 has just occurred. I don't know, man. Lots to discuss. I think we should go from the top down because I think we got to switch the format up a little bit on these. I feel like people want to see the main event, the co-main, when it comes to the review first, and the opposite when it comes to the preview. That's kind of how it works. But so we're gonna head on over and look at some good stuff. Oh, stop the share. Hold on. I think I might have accidentally shared the wrong screen, but nothing popped up, so we're cooking. All right. And boom, it's gonna share right now. All right, there we go. So, yeah, we're gonna start from the top. Alexander Volkanovski. I'm not gonna say I predicted this, but I kind of did in the preview. I said second or third round knockout for Topuria, and that's exactly what happened. Volk was looking good, chopping it up from the outside. He's thrown. I think he threw more kicks in this fight than we had ever seen him throw. He clearly saw something with that left high kick. I think he saw what Jai Herbert did, but that's perfect. You can't compare that to anything else. And if Topuria, I think we learned if Topuria puts you up against the cage, you might as well say goodnight. It's a wrap. We were discussing this just moments ago. I don't think Volk's chin is too shot, to be honest. Because he's never really had a great chin in the first place. But that head kick would have put anybody out from Islam, and that overhand right or a hook from Topuria would have put anybody out too. And the way Topuria set that up was beautiful. He moved 2 steps to the right, got out of Volk's line of sight, and just landed that thing. And we have a new champ. I think Topuria is the next big thing in the sport. I don't know. You take it away.
Yeah, no, I thought Volk actually looked pretty good in that first round. Like you said, he was going for that lead leg high kick and that lead leg body kick, which I thought was a smart move. Like you said, Jai Herbert landed that on Topuria, and I thought, Volk was trying to make a good read there. But Topuria just, he had the counter for it. He was able to kind of bait that kick out of Volk, but then just slide right out of the way before the kick actually landed. And Volk also did a good job in that first round of staying off the fence. But clearly in the second round, he got caught up against the cage. He didn't have anywhere to go. His feet were, planted straight forward. He couldn't roll with the shot at all. And yeah, I mean, I think that shot would have put out most people. I think even if Volkanovski were 10 years younger, I think he would have gone down from that shot. It's a brutal knockout, and it's a really brutal way for Volkanovski to, kick off the year here. But yeah, it's a tough spot. I mean, I agree with you. I think Topuria is definitely going to be a superstar. For all the things that he said before this fight, he backed up literally everything. I think that the Conor call out is like, I get it. Everybody wants to call out Conor when they become champion or when they win a big fight. But I think there are a lot of other interesting matchups for him. And Conor, I don't even know if he can make lightweight at this point. But yeah, all credit to Topuria. I mean, he's got great fundamentals when it comes to boxing, wrestling, and grappling. And he puts everything together super well. His feints are incredible. I mean, Volkanovski, we know how good his feint game is, and Topuria might have even outdone him a little bit. I think he had Volk really hesitating, had him confused a little bit in there. So it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said there. And the fact that he it was just it was sad. And Volk is the longest reigning, well, it was the longest reigning UFC champ by a mile. Leon Edwards is now the longest reigning UFC champ. If any of you guys are curious as to who is now, which is kind of crazy to think about, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
because Volk won the belt in what, like 2019, sometime in
December of
2019,
2019.
and Leon got it in August of 22. So that gives you an idea of, I mean, yeah, Volk had that belt for a long time.
He did. And I saw this stat on Twitter. It was every champ in featherweight, there's only been five. 92-7 at the time they got the belt.
Yeah.
92 and like that's
Yeah.
mind blowing.
It
That's
is
insane.
incredible to look back at the history of featherweight in pretty much every champ. I think once it's all said and done, Taporia is going to be like this as well. But pretty much every champion at featherweight has a claim of being the best featherweight of all time. Now, people can gripe about like, oh, well, Connor, this and that. But you look at Aldo, you look at Holloway, you look at Volkanovski, they all
Yeah.
have a very legitimate claim to be the greatest featherweight of all time. And like I said, Taporia, I I don't know who's going to beat this guy at featherweight. I mean, truly, a guy like Ortega, no. A guy like Yair, he could catch him. That's an interesting matchup. Out of all the guys that I see, I think Yair is probably the most interesting matchup, at least as of right now. Until
Mhm.
we get a guy like maybe Diego Lopes or something in the next year or so, comes up, gets on a nice run. But as of right now, I think Deportia is going to hold this belt for a while.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And I think we talk about, you see a lot of people in the comments going, Holloway's era is next. Holloway's finally going to get the belt back.
Eh,
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sorry. We'll
I,
see what happens if Holloway gets TKO'd by Gaethje or something. There's no way he's beating Topuria. I think
no,
Topuria hits harder than Gaethje. Gaethje just kind of piles it on. I'm not saying he doesn't hit hard. The dude can crack, but he's such Topuria is so dynamic. If he can't get in on Holloway, you just take him down. I
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me that people are so confident that Holloway would be the one to take out Taporia because, Holloway, yeah, he has a great chin, but he gets hit in pretty much every single fight that he's in. I mean, even in the last fight against the Korean Zombie, who is pretty washed up at this point in his career
he
and
got
was in that
cracked.
fight, he got cracked a couple of times by TKZ in that fight. You look at every single previous fight that he's had, he's been hurt, or if not hurt, he's been cracked a couple of different times. And I know people talk about, oh, he's got an iron chin. It's never been cracked. We're gonna reach a point where you're gonna face someone at some point in your career, and your chin's gonna get cracked. And
Hmm.
Ilya Taporia is the type of guy to crack anybody's chin. I don't care how good it is. Taporia can do that to you. And it's not just the fact that he is powerful; it's the fact that he combines the technique and the tactics and all of that, and the well-roundedness along on top of that power that makes him so dangerous. I think that Taporia is actually a terrible matchup for Max Holloway. And I would favor Taporia against Holloway much more than I had him over Volkanovski.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but we have Marab and uh, who's probably going to be the next bantamweight guy. But if Sean O'Malley beats Cheeto Vera, I see Sean moving up because that's the biggest fight the UFC can make right now. UFC Topuria might be the biggest star in the game right now outside of Connor. And Toby, I don't even think I'm exaggerating there, simply due to the fact that he's a European
Maybe
champion,
Strickland, maybe Sean Strickland.
maybe Sean Strickland, but you know, Real Madrid posted him on their
Yeah,
Instagram page.
he's definitely up there.
The post has 2 million likes almost.
I think he already has what, like 2 point some million followers before he
He
even became
gained about
champ.
1 million followers this week on
Yeah,
Instagram. This
yeah.
guy is the next big. He's already a big thing, and I understand the Connor call because that could be a big fight. But if Sean O'Malley defends against Cheeto, which I'm doubtful about personally, um, they're going to make that fight in Spain. I don't see it any other way. There's no way it can't happen
They should. Yeah, that'd be a great fight.
because there's no clear featherweight contender. If we look at the ranks, I think I want to say John Morgan proposed the question at the press conference. If not, it's not a big deal. It's not a bad thing to mix up. But the question was, who do you see next? And I think he brought up Movsar.
No, I'm sorry.
And
Yeah.
Topuria made an interesting point. 8 fights in the UFC, 8 decisions, and 4 split decisions.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to finish somebody. And I can't necessarily blame Topuria for saying that. So I don't think Ortega needs to fight and win 3. I don't care. He shouldn't even be ranked, in my opinion.
No, Ortega's got a long way to go.
People can say, oh, John Jones is hurt. Don't compare the greatest to this guy, because John Jones can stay in the rankings as long as he wants. I don't care. Yair, I think he's got to get 1 or 2 wins to get back into the title picture. And we'll find out this Saturday when they fight each other, that's gonna be a great fight. That should be the main event, not Moreno and Royval. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion, but they're both great fights, and we'll talk about them. I'd love to see a healthy Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah. Maybe give him like 2 years off after that.
Yeah, you got to
KO.
give that dude a lot of. That was a career-altering knockout from Josh Emmett, man.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, really, there's a couple of interesting matchups. I mean, if Max survives against Gaethje, then Max would be interesting. If Yair beats Ortega, I'd be very interested actually to see Yair fight Topuria, just because of the styles in that one. And then Movsar, I would be somewhat interested to see that fight. I just think that Ilya is probably better everywhere than Movsar is. But he's on a good win streak, but he hasn't really got any finishes, like you mentioned. Kind of like the same thing as Bilal. And we know how, it just Helwani reported today, and take that, for what you will. But he reported today that the UFC offered Leon Edwards, Hamzat, Shavkat, and Islam. No, they did not offer Bilal. So
who are all observing Ramadan.
Ramadan. Exactly. Which is, I'm not sure what the UFC was thinking on that, but
back to Volk and Topuria real quick. We'll talk about that later for sure, because we need to talk about that. But I can't believe, what was that tweet I sent from like Patty Pimblett earlier about how Patty was, you're gonna be on the prelims and stuff like that on my card. Patty, come on, man! Like this, he's bigger. He's one of the biggest guys in the UFC, and I'll give. You go.
No, go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, like, Topuria just beat one of the pound for pound greatest fighters we've ever seen, and Patty just beat Tony Ferguson, who's on a 7-fight losing streak. So that kind of didn't even finish him. So that kind of gives you an idea of where these guys are at in their career. Oh, and the fight before that was Jared Gordon, which he lost, by the way.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I see Topuria being an all-time great. I really do.
27. I mean, come on.
He's not even in his prime. That's the scary part. Only 15. I mean, the only time we ever saw him in trouble was with one of the greatest timed head kicks ever.
Yeah. So, speaking of, that's a good segue to the co-main if you want to.
Great. Yeah, let's do that. The good one. Shout Ilya Topuria, man. But how this didn't win fight of the night is criminal. I'm not gonna say Lemos and Dern was a bad fight. That was a good fight. There were some moments there, and we'll talk about a couple things that occurred in that fight. This was amazing. Paulo, did Sal Diamato give Robert Whitaker the first round?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Someone did. There's no way he won the first. He was almost out cold and on his feet.
Well, I don't know how he ate that kick. I mean, that was about as flush as you can get.
Especially Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, that's the craziest part to me is it's so weird how some shots will put a guy down and you're like, wow, it didn't even look like that big of a shot. And then you take a flush spinning heel kick off the temple or
from
maybe
Costa.
even just off the jaw from Costa and he eats it. It's like, what? But hey, shout out Rob Whitaker, man.
For a year and a half off, I thought Paulo Costa looked really good.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think if he just stays active, I think this dude can get back to the top of the division. And Robert Whitaker looked good after that. His second and third rounds looked fantastic. I thought he looked phenomenal. That second round was pretty close, but third round he started to pull away a little bit. His jab was true the whole fight, and I'll give this to Costa, man. I don't know how he throws his leg kicks, his kicks up so fast for how big he is.
It's incredible, yeah.
What a fight, man. I think Whitaker and Strickland's the fight to make.
Yeah, good fight.
And
Yeah,
Paulo, I don't know, man. I still think he deserves to fight up in the rankings. I'm down. I'm down for a Vittoria or Cannonier fight with that guy.
100%. I think, for all the extracurriculars involved with Paulo Costa, all the things that happen
Secret
outside the
juice.
octagon. I mean, look, he's a good fighter and he brings it every single fight. You know what you're getting into in a Paulo Costa fight. You know it's going to be a war or he's going to put you away. I mean, I thought he looked very good in this fight against one of the most talented guys in the division in Robert Whitaker. I thought he just looked sharp. He looked quick. He looked incredibly quick in that fight.
Yes,
Almost maybe even quicker than Whitaker, who is a very fast guy. And Whitaker too, I thought he looked fantastic coming off a rough loss to DDP. The jab, like you said, was looking good. I thought the leg kick was really, really nice from Whitaker. I thought he actually looked pretty powerful in this one. There were a
he
couple of
did.
right hands that he landed on Costa that seemed to have like a visible effect on Paulo. And that's not something we see too much from Whitaker. Of course, we see it when he lands that head kick, like he landed on Cannonier and
The
Gastelum and
2-1 head
Souza.
kick.
Yeah, like of course he can hurt you with that. But when he's just throwing his regular combinations, his boxing combinations, he's not really a guy that's going to put you away, at least not recently.
No.
And he looked like he was stunning Costa a couple of times. Not that he was like rocked and falling all over the place, but some of the shots seemed to be having an effect. And yeah, I thought Whitaker displayed incredible toughness after being finished in his last fight with, a jab set him down. He got hurt really bad. To come back in this one, take the shots that he took, fight through it, bring that dog out of him. Clearly, this was fight of the night. Like you said, no disrespect to Dern and Limoges, good fight as well, but this was far and away the best fight of the night. I was thoroughly impressed by both men here.
Paulo Costa is incredibly durable. I don't know what happened in the Adesanya fight, but man,
Yeah.
he didn't look phased by the leg kicks at all. It was
Mm-mm.
pretty phenomenal. Shout out Paulo Costa, man. He looked phenomenal. Shout out Bobby Knuckles too. We don't have Bobby Knuckles around much longer in his prime, maybe. So enjoy him enjoy the tail end of his prime while you can, or unless he has like a second win or something. But I'm just keeping it real with you guys.
You never know.
Never know. I mean, Robert Whitaker's been in the game for so long.
Yeah.
It, well, let's take a look for a sec. And he's only lost to champions at middleweight. He's
Yep.
he's a phenomenal fighter. Phenomenal fighter. Um, yeah, great. Dang, I wish he got to defend.
Incredible resume. I mean, you're
I
talking
can't
about a
believe he was
guy who's
gonna
beat.
fight Bisping.
Yeah, he would have slaughtered Michael Bisping.
Yeah, he probably would have. I'm sure Bisping would admit that too. Looking back at it.
Honestly, it is one of the biggest black marks, like the biggest stain, and one of the biggest stains in UFC history is the fact that they gave Dan Henderson, number 13 ranked contender, Dan Henderson, who beat Hector Lombard, completely washed up Hector Lombard. They gave him a title shot over Robert Whitaker. Let that sink in for a second. And by the way, Dan Henderson dropped Michael Bisping twice in that fight when he was like 44 and he had been on like a 3-fight skid and then won against Hector Lombard. Like,
Hector
come on.
Lombard.
Come on.
That's just one of the weirdest things. Yeah,
And then he fought GSP
yeah,
and then he lost.
yeah. And then he got sent to another dimension by.
Gaslam. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oof, that was a rough
Hey,
one.
anyway, ugh. Jeff
Hey,
Neal won this fight. I don't care what anybody says, bro. Jeff Neal won rounds 1 and 2, and it was somewhat apparent to me. Um, I don't know what you think, but what do you think, Toby?
I don't know. I thought Ian Gary did enough to win this one. I think Jeff Neal, remember when we were doing the preview, I said that Jeff Neal makes a lot of mistakes and he has a pretty low fight IQ. And we saw that in this fight where he could have, and he did many times actually, push Ian Gary. Well, I should say many times, but a couple of times he pushed Ian Gary up against the cage. He grabbed a collar tie or some form of a clinch. He was throwing elbows, knees. When he got him inside, he was having real success. and then he just stopped doing it. It wasn't that Ian Gary figured something out and was able to counter him on that. Jeff Neal just decided that he wasn't going to do what was working for him anymore. So I'm not sure what he was thinking in this fight. I think Jeff Neal lost just based on poor decision making. I don't think Ian Gary looked particularly good.
No.
I think that Jeff Neal just didn't implement a good game plan. And I think it's really on Jeff Neal because we know Saif Saud is a really good coach.
He's phenomenal.
We know how good game plans he can implement. And for whatever reason, Jeff Neal just couldn't execute it. Ian Gary, yeah, I mean, that's 2 performances in a row where he hasn't really looked overly impressive. I mean, the Neil Magny fight, he landed some nice leg kicks but he couldn't get him out of there. Same thing here. Couldn't get Jeff Neal out of here. I mean, I wasn't overly impressed, but it's a win's a win. So
Yeah, a win's a win. I don't want to talk about this anymore, so we're gonna move on. Um, Marab, man, Cejudo won the first round. I don't even think it was very. There's not much debate there, but Marab dominated rounds 2 and 3.
yeah,
There's not much to say here, I don't think, because this is. I think I said Cejudo was gonna win, but I'm not surprised. This is how the fight went. Yeah, Marab gets the next title shot at bantamweight, even though I think he should have wanted to fight Aljamain. That's just my opinion. I understand where he's coming from, though, but
in the post-fight interview, like when he was getting interviewed by Rogan, was I mistaken or did he mention? I thought he said something to the effect of the UFC never sent us a contract, referring to him and Aljo, and then he said something like, "But if they did, maybe I would consider it. Like maybe we would have to fight." Or I thought he said something like that, but I could be mistaken on that. But I could have sworn
huh.
he mentioned that he might fight Aljo if the contract was there, but I'm not sure.
I think I recall something like that coming along Twitter as well.
Um, but yeah, in regards to the fight, though, I mean, this is another one where in the preview I mentioned something that I feel like not a lot of people were discussing, which was the cardio of Henry Cejudo, which I had some questions around. And we saw in that second round, Henry looked winded. I mean, he
Yeah.
looked very tired after that first round. And I'm sure that's partly due to Marab just keeping a torrid pace in every single fight. This guy has probably the best cardio in the whole UFC. So I'm sure that had a factor. But Cejudo just, I didn't think the cardio looked great in the last one. It didn't look good in this one. There were a couple of big moments from Marab. It was a good performance by Marab. I mean, I thought he had moments. It wasn't spectacular, but when he picked him up, ran him across the octagon, you saw Zuckerberg with his like weird clap, like whatever he was doing. That was interesting, but I mean, Marab, he's a fun guy. He's a character. His fights are not the most fun. Like the Aldo fight in particular is really terrible, but he's a fun guy on the microphone. So yeah, I'm interested in him fighting O'Malley.
Yeah, I am too. People were saying we're kind of dogging Dana White about not letting Henry Cejudo retire. I hate to say it, but I kind of agree with him on that. He had his moment almost 4 years, geez, 4 years ago at this point.
Mhm.
I mean, he did the whole thing and then just to come back.
Yeah,
I I see where he's coming from. Personally, I would have let him say something,
yeah.
but I kind of agree with Dana White because I wouldn't say that I agree with him, but I completely see where he's coming from, and I'm not going to dog him for that.
I think Dana also does have a bit of animosity towards Henry because he was really blindsided. If people remember when Cejudo retired after the Cruz fight, Dana was really pissed off because Cejudo had mentioned it to nobody, like not even his coaches, I don't think. It was just out of nowhere. He was like, I'm retiring, I'm done. And that really threw a wrench in things for the bantamweight division at that point. I think Dana just got pretty heated after that. Now, I will say, though, you're talking about a guy who was a simultaneous flyweight and bantamweight champion, and he is one of the few to actually defend both belts. He defended the flyweight and the bantamweight belt. So regardless of what has happened previously, I think that they should have given him a little moment. I mean, he's one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in this sport. So, but yeah, like you said, I mean, I wouldn't, I don't care too much.
Yeah. You want to talk about this, man? I know this was probably hard for you.
Yeah, so like I said before the fight, Roman Kopylov is just super overrated. His takedown defense sucks. I mean, this guy, everybody talks about Kopylov this, Kopylov that. I was telling you guys before the fight, look, don't put any money on this guy. He's trash. He's never going to be in the top 15 in the UFC. Not, okay, but seriously though, yes, very disappointed. I actually thought he looked pretty good in the first round.
He did.
I thought that those body kicks were there. He was landing beautiful body kicks. I was like, yes, just a few more of those, and Fluffy's going to go down. The left straight was looking clean. I thought he looked great. The takedown defense was on point, but I should have just listened to everybody else. And because what most people were saying was Kopylov is going to look good in that first round, and then Fluffy's just going to wear him down. He's going to take him to the ground. He's going to choke him out. And I was like, no, Kopylov, his takedown defense has improved, and it has improved. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's
for sure.
Yeah, it's much better than it used to be, and his submission defense is much better than it used to be. But I think Fluffy is just a very suffocating grappler. He's a great wrestler, and he actually has better boxing than I gave him credit for, and he mixed it in well. So all credit to Fluffy in this one. I thought he actually looked really good, a lot better than I expected. Kopylov, I don't think is done by any means. I think that he still has a bit of a hole when it comes to the wrestling and grappling, but yeah, I think both these guys have a bright future. I'm really excited to see what Anthony Hernandez does next. I think he deserves a top 10 guy.
I completely agree. Let's take a look at the top 10. Jacker Manson, Roma Dolidze. We got some options.
And
Paul Craig would be a fun fight.
It would. And you know what's interesting for Fluffy is that you look at the top of this division from Strickland to Adesanya, Whitaker, Cannonier. All those guys at the top of the division are not grapplers. They are primarily strikers. So
Duplessis
if he
can grapple though.
DDP can grapple, but still primarily a striker, I would say. But if you just look at the top of the division, there are some favorable matchups there for Fluffy, I would say.
Same with Vettori.
Yeah.
Paul Cost can grapple. He just doesn't use it. That's the thing. The Duke can grapple.
I would actually, I'd love to see this would be a big step up, and I'm not sure the UFC would do it, but I think Fluffy versus Brendan Allen would be a really fun fight.
That would be pretty awesome, actually. All right. Lemos versus Dern. Fight of the night. We don't agree. Here's what
though.
It was a good fight. Oh, it was a great fight. Not great. It was pretty good. I thought the fight should have been stopped when Dern covered her face, and I think Lemos hesitated just a little bit. I think no one would have disagreed with that stoppage because Dern literally went like this. She literally put her hands on her face.
Yeah, her face was like this.
It
was horrible. It was a bad reaction.
I kind of remember Lemos just hesitating a little bit because
it reminded
me of when Rory McDonald got hit in the face.
Yeah, I was going to say it reminded me of when Cheeto Vera hit Rob Font with that lead hook kick, and Rob Font went down. He was like, just fell onto his back. If you remember that, in like the 4th or 5th round of that fight.
Yeah, I mean that fight could have been stopped after the 4th or 5th knockdown, honestly. Yeah. But shout out Amanda Lemos. She looked great. We all thought Dern was going to be this next big thing. No, that's pretty broad. A lot of MMA fans thought Dern was going to be this next big thing. I don't see it. She's I know she outstruck Angela Hill, but I kind of feel like that was just a one-off thing. I mean, Dern's jiu-jitsu is second to none in pretty much all of women's MMA. But if she can't get you to the ground, and if there's someone who throws good straight punches like Lemos, granted, I think Lemos was knocked. She wasn't knocked down apparently, but Dern got a couple good strikes in there. But there's no, I don't see Dern. Just, I don't know. If we look at the rankings, for strawweight, Marina Rodriguez, straight puncher. Janjidoba, I think Dern and Janjidoba fought, and I think Dern won that fight. Andrade, she can crack. We found out. Lemos, same thing. Tatiana Suarez, that would be interesting on the ground. Zhang Weili, I think, would destroy her on the feet.
Merker, yeah.
So, to me, there's no room for Dern to, in anyone above her, really, for her to beat. It's a tough road up for her, I think.
Yeah, I had no clue that Virna Jandiroba was the number 5 contender in strawweight, but shout out to her. I mean, hey,
Yeah, man.
good for Jandiroba. Maybe she'll get a
Yeah.
title shot soon. But no, I mean, Mackenzie Dern, she still has the problem, which she's had throughout her entire career, of she just bum rushes forward. Like she just charges straight at you, flailing her arms. And it's like Juliana Pena in the second Amanda Nunes fight. That's what happens to Mackenzie Dern in pretty much every fight. She'll run at you with her hands down. If you just know how to throw a pull counter, that's it. Just a simple pull counter, you will drop her. And Lemos dropped her a couple of times with that. I thought her wrestling looked, it looked pretty good. She had a nice takedown or two against Lemos. She had good control as always, and we know how good her grappling is. Like you mentioned, she's a world-class jiu-jitsu player. There's no question about that. And you mentioned too the Angela Hill fight. The thing with Angela Hill though is that she is the definition of a coin flip fighter. I mean, you look at Angela Hill's UFC career, it's win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So I think that was just one of those ones where Dern came in and Hill just had, a bad performance, or maybe Dern just had a spectacularly good performance that night. Either way, her striking has not really improved over the last several years.
She needs to join a real team. That's what she needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. She needs to join a real team. I mean, her offensive wrestling hasn't improved nearly as much as it should have. For someone who is so focused on grappling, someone like her, like Paul Craig, all these people, for whatever reason, many of these jiu-jitsu specialists don't feel the need to work on their doubles and their singles. And I'm not sure why. If she just had good wrestling, she wouldn't really have to worry too much about the striking. Of course, she should cut back on the charging forward with her hands down. But if she had that really, really good wrestling, it would make her so much more dangerous. But for whatever reason, maybe it's just she doesn't have a stable camp behind her. She hasn't been able to figure that out.
Yeah. Bizarre.
And I will mention too, Lemos was making me a little bit angry in this fight because for whatever reason, she decided to take Mackenzie Dern down multiple times after she was. I wouldn't say Dern had any submissions that were close. I mean, she was working through positions well and was dominating on the ground.
She swept Lemos at one point.
Yeah, she swept her at one point. And then Lemos decided to re-engage. In the one area where Mackenzie Dern has an advantage, Lemos is like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to engage with her in that. And I'm like, it just was not.
I mean, I wouldn't do it myself, but I don't think Lemos really put her in any, put herself in really any truly, oh my gosh, this is not looking good. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. But I guess my point would be is if you have a clear path to victory and if you have such an advantage over someone on the feet, then why even engage on the ground at all? It's like you look at the fight below this one, Rogério de Lima against Junior Tafa. De Lima had Junior Tafa fighting on one leg. I mean, he was a one-legged guy in that octagon, and De Lima decided to take him down and try to ground and pound him, try to finish him on the ground. The dude was hopping around, could barely stand, and De Lima's like, yeah, I'm going to take him down. What? Like that makes no sense. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where if you have a clear path to victory, just take that path.
Yeah, and then Rogério, great transition. Rogério de Lima eventually did just take that path.
Yeah,
And beat
exactly.
Junior Tafa. Not much to talk about here, honestly. Not surprised it got to this point.
The only thing I was surprised about was it was what, like one kick that he landed that destroyed his leg, like one or two maybe.
I mean, it hit perfectly. The leg was dead. I saw the kick. It was right behind the knee. Beautiful placement by De Lima.
Yeah.
It's really it for that fight. Nothing crazy. If anything, this Rinya Nakamura fight versus Carlos Vera fight proved that specialists are dead in this sport. Carlos Vera, especially against someone like Rinya Nakamura, I'm pretty sure the story is don't quote me. Well, quote me on this, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm right. He had made the Olympic team for Japan. Then, because the Olympics got pushed back due to the pandemic, he had to try for the team again. He didn't make it. Especially a guy of a caliber of Rinya Nakamura. I don't think Nakamura's bad enough to put himself in a terrible position against another grappler, even though his main thing is wrestling. And people were booing this. I'm like, dude, I think Rinya Nakamura could be a champ in the 35 division. I'm not gonna say, oh, it's gonna happen, but there's not many grapplers in that 35 division where I'd be like, oh, this this person can give Nakamura problems. He's an Olympic level wrestler. I, I don't I don't see how maybe someone submits him, it catches him, but outside of that, his ground game is probably better than second to none in that division, and his stand-up's not half bad. So I think Nakamura is going to find himself in the top 10 or top 5 by the end of the year.
Yeah, that was a fantastic performance by Nakamura. Carlos Vera, look, he is what he is. I mean, he was throwing those spinning kicks and he was trying to fall on his back. And all right, I will say, at least he did not butt scoot. I was very happy about that because we have seen butt scooters in the octagon before. And
Chrome
Carlos
Gracie.
Vera, yeah, Cron Gracie. I mean, to my not Claudio Pugliese, to my recollection, Vera did not do that in this fight. So good for him. But it was not a good performance. Yes, he is BJJ or bust. And there were a couple of times where I was like, maybe he's getting a little close. But you just look at Nakamura and the way he flows through every position. There was no, you could look in his eyes and just tell that there was no danger at all. There was never a moment where he was like, oh man, this might be deep. Oh, I'm in trouble here. He went from position to position beautifully. He had like 13 minutes of control time. Plus he was landing some strikes. I mean, Nakamura dominated this fight. I thought the wrestling was great. The grappling was great. The striking even looked pretty good. I thought this was striking against a guy like Carlos Vera, you should look pretty good. But all in all, I think Nakamura, like you mentioned, is a very good prospect in this division.
It's exciting stuff. Very exciting.
And probably the best division in the UFC already. To get another guy like this is just absurd.
There's not too much more I want to talk about. You got anything regarding the card itself?
Yeah, I would say good knockout by Zhang in that one. I thought, that was a solid finish that he got. And then Danny Barlow, I was actually really impressed with Danny Barlow. I think he's got a bright future in that division. He's a super tall, lanky welterweight. He's got a piston of a left hand, and his defense is really solid. I mean, he's one of those guys who is able to just get out of the way far enough of punches to where he doesn't get clipped, but he's still in range to counter you. He does a perfect job of that. I think Danny Barlow is legit. I know Josh Quinlan, not exactly like a super high level guy, but Danny Barlow, this was his UFC debut, after the Contender Series. So I think that I was really impressed by his performance and the fact that he broke his arm in the fight in the first round and finished Quinlan with that arm. So incredible stuff.
Yeah. Miranda Maverick looked pretty good. She looked pretty good.
Yeah, solid.
I don't know where her place in this division is. It's really weird because I'm trying to remember what, she's won 2 of her last 3, right? 4 of her last 5, rather. Mazo, Young. That's not a bad loss. Blanchfield.
Yeah, losing to Blanchfield. Yeah.
She's a dog. She kind of hovers around that 15, 16 position. And right when she's about to move up in the rankings, she just can't pull it off. I mean, she is a huge, I think you'd agree with me. She's a huge flyweight. She's a huge flyweight. And I don't see Maverick staying at 25 much longer simply due to the fact that she's a yoked 25.
Yeah, I don't know if she can. I don't know how much longer she physically can.
Yeah. She doesn't look too bad at weight cuts or anything. So that's what, once we see that, we'll be like, okay, it's about to be that time. But if she can stay at 25, there's not many people that can outmuscle her probably. She just needs she doesn't fight too often. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say too, not for Maverick, but for Andrea Lee in this fight, man, was I disappointed. And she just could not pull the trigger in this one. And you're talking about someone who, if I'm not mistaken, Andrea Lee is on a bit of a skid right now. And this was, her back's against the wall and she needed to pull something off here. And she just could not pull the trigger. So I'm not sure what was going on, but she was very hesitant and it was not a great performance from her.
I mean, Miranda Maverick's a dog, man. I do think she has a future in this division. She only fights about twice. If she can get that one more, fight 2 or 3. I mean, she didn't take any damage in this fight. No. She looked great after the fight. Apparently, she sells pickles. I mean, they were hammering that. Hey,
yeah, they said that like
Toby,
a dozen times.
Toby, I have an idea. I think during a week where there's no fights, we got to order a couple jars of pickles and try them on camera.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, the way they were hyping him up,
They better
I
be
kind of want
good.
to try him. Yeah.
Miranda Maverick. I'm looking at you,
Miranda
man.
Maverick she probably got a lot of business from that. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's a lot of people that
She's an
went and bought
impressive
pickles.
person. She was in a PhD program. Apparently, she stopped that. I mean, if you're a full-time fighter, I mean, come on. Like,
Well, they
I
were saying
understand why you
too,
would stop.
Josh Quinlan, they said that he had a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I didn't realize that so many of these fighters were like super smart, but hey, shout out to
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I mean, shoot, crazy. Toby, we gotta discuss something, man. I'm getting tired of Rogan's commentary. He really hammers home things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
And here's where I think it is. What is it? I just lost. Oh, he doesn't. He comes in the day of the ceremonial weigh-ins, I think, and he's not present for the fighter meetings. I think that's a huge thing for commentary. Um, and he was all over Ian Gary. The way he made it sound, he made it kind of sound, in my opinion, he made it sound that Ian Gary was kind of winning this fight handily, even though I don't agree.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah, it was weird, definitely, especially in the Ian Gary fight, because it would be one thing if Ian Gary was like tripling the number of strikes in every single round and he knocked Jeff Neal down multiple times and he was dominating clearly. It's like, okay, yeah, if you want to talk about how great he is and all this stuff, sure. But this was just kind of a mediocre performance where he skated by and got a split decision win. I mean, yeah, it was a close fight and he won it. So good for him. But there was no need to talk about how like this guy is such a high level striker. I mean, we've never seen anybody like that, all the things that he was
He
saying in
does
this
it
fight.
all the time.
Yeah, he does do it all the time. So I don't know. And yeah, Rogan has a knack for bringing up irrelevant facts that like especially things that happened like 20 years ago. And Rogan to me just seems like he's stuck in the past. He doesn't do his research for current fighters. He's always just bringing up super obscure old fights or like some random, he's like, oh, maybe you could pull off some choke that nobody will ever do in the UFC. He's like, oh, you might have this choke right here. No, they won't, because nobody's ever going to do that choke in the UFC.
Well, the one thing that stood out to me when he was doing commentary was Blachowicz versus Adesanya, and he mentioned that Blachowicz fought at 85. He never
Yeah.
fought at 85.
No.
I knew that.
Was that the
Doing
same
research for
fight
this
where
podcast.
was that the same fight where they were like, Blachowicz is eating these feints right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Well,
does.
by definition, you can't eat a feint, but
Blachowicz
okay.
was doing the same thing that Topuria does, and it was taking a step back, which
Yeah.
is perfectly fine.
Yeah. And that fight too was so egregious because Blachowicz won that fight, like 4-1? I mean, it was pretty clear that it was clear that he was winning too. And they were like, oh, it's really
Blachowicz looked great on
close.
the feet against Adesanya too. That was a
Yeah.
great performance. Shout out Blachowicz, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, what else? It's just and John Anik calling Volk. They're all calling Volk the greatest featherweight of all time, and it's undebatable. Otto's the greatest featherweight of all time, and I don't even think it's close. 9 defenses of the title.
Look, man, I think personally, I might still consider Max Holloway the greatest featherweight of all time. I know people can say like, oh, how can you say that Holloway's better than Volk? Volk beat Holloway 3 times. Well, Holloway beat Jose Aldo 2 times, and Conor McGregor beat Jose Aldo. So it's like we can do this whole like, oh, who's better than who beat who. We're talking about resumes here, people. Okay, and resume wise, probably Jose Aldo. I would agree with that. Personally, just me for the fun, like the excitement. Who I liked best as a champion, who I thought was the best champion was Max Holloway. I thought his reign was something special, truly. So for me, it's probably still Max Holloway. And Volk definitely has a great argument. He has a case for being the greatest featherweight. But to say that this was like every other sentence, like the consensus greatest featherweight of all time. What consensus? When was this consensus reached? Because I didn't get a vote on this.
I have a different answer.
Like, yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure who was voting on this, but yeah. That was kind of annoying. And I understand too, they're trying to sell the fight, right? They want to make it so when Topuria wins, they're like, wow, he just beat the consensus greatest featherweight of all time and it looks better. I understand that, but it was getting a little bit annoying. Also, let me just say this, John Anik, you don't have to use the word proverbial every time you say something like, oh, like that was a proverbial shot in the dark. I know he's not actually shooting something in the dark. I know you don't mean literally a shot in the dark, John. You don't have to say the word proverbial, okay? He always says that.
He says that word. I never thought about that. He says proverbial a fair amount. But hey,
Well,
John Anik's the guy, man. I love
yeah,
John Anik.
yes.
Um,
Great
it's,
comment. No, I want to take nothing away from John A. He's a phenomenal commentator.
he's
Don't get me wrong, very, very good.
he's great. I gotta give this. Bisping might have been the best guy at the desk on Saturday, and that's
Yeah.
the last thing I ever expected to say.
I think Bisbing was focused. That's the best Bisbing is a focused Bisbing. You know, when he goes
Yeah,
off on
you can't
tangents
put
with
him and Cruz
DC,
at the desk together. You
him
can't.
and Cruz or him and DC, it's just not compatible.
Look, I've said this on the show umpteen times. Fitz, Bisping, and Felder are the best commentary trio, and I don't care what anybody says. You learn stuff. It's funny. Shout out to Fitz for also coming on the show a few years ago. I got to hit you up again. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. That's my opinion. Um, one more thing we should cover. Oh, right. UFC 300 main event, Pereira versus Jamal Hill. You know, for as hyped as this ass was getting, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but I feel like DDP and Adesanya was more of the answer. I don't know how bad DDP got hurt in that fight. But I mean, Pereira wants to defend the belt again 23 days later. But here's the thing: if I think on the feet, Jamal Hill in the division is the most threatening to Pereira simply due to the fact that he can put anybody's lights out at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that fight. I'm not complaining. Like that's the fight. I personally I think they should just put Holloway and Gaethje as the main event for 300. I don't think anybody would have been disappointed. But the bout Gaethje and Holloway are the first championship fight, quote unquote. I think it should be the second one up. That's just me. Not to take anything away from Zhang Weili or Yan Xiaonan, which I fully expect Zhang Weili to do her thing. Shout Zhang
Yeah.
Weili. And people are kind of dogging that card for no reason. It's a great card.
No, it is a fantastic card. There's a few things for me about UFC 300 that are a little bit bothersome. Like for one, the main event, when I saw that fight was announced, I was like, okay, that's a banger. That's a great fight. But that's a co-main. On UFC 300, that's a co-main event. That's not the main event. I'm sorry. Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill should not be headlining UFC 300. It's as simple as that. The second thing, Yan Xiaonan against Zhang Weili, why are they not doing that on the UFC China card? They're literally like the two biggest Chinese fighters in the UFC, and they're talking about we're going to go to China, we're going to have this big pay-per-view. Why not put the two Chinese fighters headlining the UFC China card? I don't understand that.
Why didn't they save? They say they did not save any of these Brazilian fighters for the Brazil
For
card 3
301.
weeks later. You
It
have
makes no sense.
Andrade Rodriguez, but they want to see them.
Yeah.
Diego Lopez, or why didn't they put Diego Lopez on the Mexico card? I know he represents Mexico too. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Davis and Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt, that could open up the pay-per-view.
Yeah. And also, what is up with the UFC? They're like, we're going to offer Leon Edwards 3 Muslims during Ramadan. And of course, they all denied it because it's Ramadan. They're fasting. They're not. I mean, you would have to be very brave or very stupid to take a fight when you are fasting. So they offered him Islam, Shavkat, and Hamzat, which is, yeah, I mean, does Hamzat Shemaev really deserve a title shot at welterweight? I mean, I guess since he beat Gilbert Burns, he is, technically he's still a like top contender there, but it's kind of hilarious that they didn't offer Bilal a title shot, but at the same time, objectively speaking, Bilal definitely deserves a title shot. Do I want to see him win the belt? No. But just objectively, does he deserve it? Yeah, probably. But
Yeah.
I mean, if they gave it to Shavkat, I wouldn't be complaining or anything.
If Shavkat would call up fighters and had a little bit more I don't think I don't think Shafkat has no personality, but you know what I mean. If he was more expressive, he'd have
Mhm.
a title shot already. There's no question,
Oh yeah,
in my
100%.
opinion. I mean, Shafkat's
Hey,
the boogeyman of that division. As I think he'd
oh yeah,
destroy Hamzat. I really do.
I agree. And hey, let me give a huge shout out to Leon Edwards. He accepted not one, not two, all three of those fights. He accepted every single one. So shout out to Leon. That's
Yeah.
huge. I mean,
I
that's crazy.
I truly don't think the UFC wants Bilal Muhammad to be the champion.
Oh, absolutely not. I
I
can't blame him
can't
though.
say I blame them,
Yeah. That's a pay-per-view killer right there.
but
Oh, and then
I just can't. I couldn't. I, I would get out of bed for a Bilal Muhammad pay-per-view event.
absolutely not.
And I think Leon Edwards takedown defense. I don't see Bilal Muhammad be. We saw what happened in the first fight, and I'm not saying the same thing would happen again. But Bilal Muhammad's 35. He's not getting any better, probably.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a pretty brutal fight for Bilal Muhammad again.
Oh,
And
I agree.
Leon Edwards is so much bigger than Muhammad. That's one thing I noticed watching them fight. Leon Edwards is huge for the division. I don't think people realize Leon Edwards is not a small 170 guy. He is
He's a big guy.
pretty big.
Yeah.
He didn't look small against Usman. I'll say that.
No. Well, he's got the most aesthetic physique in the UFC. There's no doubt about that.
I mean,
Have you seen all those videos of
yeah,
it's like here's why Leon Edwards has the most aesthetic physique in the
dude,
whole UFC.
He's freakishly symmetrical. That's one
He
thing I
is. He
noticed. It's
really
not
is.
normal.
He's got like literally perfect proportions on every part of his body, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
it's not normal.
Oh, I
Try,
also I forgot to mention too. I think people. I've been saying this for a long time. You can go back and watch previous episodes if anybody out there wants to. I think Jamal Hill is severely underrated. I think that people are sleeping on Jamal Hill. I'm not saying that he goes out there and beats Alex Pereira. I'm just saying for all the people who say it's a wash, Pereira's going to destroy him. He's going to knock him out cold.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
let's see what happens because Jamal Hill is a very clean striker. He can mix in the wrestling if he needs to. He's been improving every single fight that we've seen him in. He is quick for, despite his, he carries a bit of weight on him, right? But he's quick despite all that. Very athletic guy despite the little bit of extra weight that he carries. I mean, I think Jamal Hill is a very, very good fighter. I think he's a tough challenge for Alex Pereira. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be a 5-round back and forth, drag him out war. And I think if I had to favor someone, I would slightly favor Pereira, but it's a dangerous fight for him.
Yeah, we'll see. Lots of good stuff coming up. Next 2, 3 main events are absolutely garbage. Except I mean, outside UFC Mexico, I'm not. In my opinion, these are not great.
Yeah,
Roses,
Moreno Royval, I'm really looking forward to because
yes,
their first fight just ended in such a bad way
yeah,
where Royval blew out his shoulder, and
yeah. R
I want to see them fight again.
Rosenstruik versus Gaziv is embarrassing.
Oh, oh, that's
I
horrible.
mean, you got Alex Perez and Muhammad Mokaev fighting on the card. Put them as the main event, please. That's awesome. That's a great fight.
The UFC, they are allergic to putting flyweights in the main event, even though flyweights are just objectively much more interesting and
Yeah.
much more skilled than heavyweights.
And you got Matt Schnell versus Steve Ursig opening up the main card. Why are they opening up the main card? Put them up higher.
That's
Although I will
ridiculous.
say this dude Umar Nurmagomedov's fighting is no joke. If you've seen highlights of what's his name, Beksat Al Makan, the dude is not an average fighter. He is a great striker. This could be interesting for Umar, and I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for him.
Which card is this?
Rosenstruik versus Gaziv.
Oh, okay. What are they, like the co-main or something?
Umar? No.
Yeah. They're just like a featured fight.
They're the second
Oh.
fight on the main card.
Oh,
You
interesting.
got Eric Anders versus Jamie Pickett. That's actually a good fight.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Pickett hasn't been cut. I'm
I know
sorry.
he's been on quite a bit of a skid here.
Why isn't Joel Alvarez on the main card?
Man, just the fact that Shamil
Ugh.
Gadziev is in a main event is just pathetic. But
How many fights has Gaziv had? 2,
I
3?
think I think one official UFC fight. I think the other one was a contender
What, Martin
series.
Buday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, shows you the state of the UFC heavyweight division, and it shows you the mindset of the UFC, where they're like, we're going to put these two sloppy, terrible heavyweights in together just because heavyweights, we think heavyweights are better,
I don't think
at selling.
I don't think Rosen Strike's bad. I think he's gonna piece the dude up, honestly. But
Well, he's a great kickboxer. I mean, for sure. But
yeah, we'll see. But my voice is tired. We're gonna end this. Toby, you got anything else to add?
no, I don't really remember seeing any like big news or anything. So that was about
All
it.
right, cool. Thanks for joining us on this live stream, guys. I don't think many of you watched, but that's okay. I didn't announce anything. But we'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Peace.